Leslie Johnson was the kind of man people prayed for. He was calm, thoughtful, hardworking, and above all, genuine. At just 34 years old, Leslie had built a tech empire from nothing. He called it Johnson Digital Solutions. He started it from a cramped studio apartment on Chicago's South Side, right after graduating with student loans still hanging over his head. Now he has 50 employees and offices in 3 cities, one in Chicago, one in Austin, and one in San Francisco. People called him the quiet genius. But Leslie didn't chase headlines. He valued substance over flash. He valued family. He valued doing right by people, even when no one was watching. Even with all his wealth and recognition, Leslie remained anchored in humility. He still drove to his mother's house every Sunday for dinner, sitting at that same worn kitchen table where she'd raised him. He still mentored kids from his old neighborhood, teaching coding classes at the community center. He still donated computers to underfunded schools across the Midwest. But there was one thing missing in Leslie's life. Love. Leslie met her on a bright Saturday afternoon in Los Angeles. He'd flown in for a tech summit in Century City. After the conference wrapped, his college friend Chris practically dragged him to Rodeo Drive. "Man, you need clothes that don't scream, 'I sleep at my desk,'" Chris had laughed. That's where he saw her. Her name was Jennifer Clark. She wore a cream silk blouse and tailored slacks that screamed expensive taste. Her smile was radiant, like California sunshine bottled up and aimed right at him. Her manicured hands gestured elegantly as she spoke, and her voice carried that smooth, confident tone of someone who'd spent their whole life in rooms where everything cost more than it should. She helped Leslie pick out a blazer. Then they talked and talked and talked. They exchanged numbers. That night, Leslie couldn't sleep. He kept replaying her laugh in his mind, bright, musical, intoxicating. Something about her captivated him. She was beautiful, undeniably so. But it wasn't just her looks. She seemed real. Grounded. Different from the social climbers he'd met at industry events. The next morning, she texted him. He stared at his phone grinning like a teenager for a solid 10 minutes. 3 weeks later, they went on their first date. Being a Los Angeles native and woman who knew every corner of the city, Jennifer took charge of planning. She brought him to an upscale rooftop restaurant in West Hollywood with a view that stretched from downtown to the ocean. Leslie had expected something more low-key, but she said, "You work too hard not to enjoy the finer things. Let me show you how the other half lives." He found it charming at the time. Over the following months, they became inseparable. Leslie sent her flowers on random Tuesdays just because. She surprised him with personalized cufflinks engraved with his company logo. She texted him every morning, "Good morning, handsome." His guarded heart began to open. He shared his fears, his struggles growing up with a single mother, his dreams of building something that mattered beyond profits. She listened. Or at least, she seemed to. And when he finally worked up the courage to say, "I think I'm falling for you," she smiled that sunshine smile and replied, "I've been waiting for you to say that." Jennifer worked as a senior marketing representative for a luxury skincare brand. Her salary was comfortable, but nothing close to Leslie's wealth. He didn't care about the gap. He admired her polish, her confidence, her ambition. One evening over wine, she mentioned her dream of owning her own boutique marketing agency in Malibu. Leslie immediately offered to help, and he did. He connected her with investors, gave her seed capital, set her up with the resources she needed. 6 months later, her business was thriving. Eventually, Leslie brought Jennifer home to meet his family in Chicago. His mother was warm and welcoming. His father, a retired postal worker with a no-nonsense attitude, was more reserved. "Are you sure about this girl?" he asked Leslie privately. Leslie nodded firmly. "She's ambitious and confident, Dad." I know she comes from a different world, but that's what makes us work. You've always taught me that love bridges differences. His father wanted to trust his son's judgment. When Jennifer finally met the family, she played her part perfectly. She complimented his mother's cooking, admired the old family photos on the mantel, even played with his young niece, calling her princess. Everyone agreed they looked perfect together. On Instagram, their photos looked like a fairy tale. Friends commented, "Power couple alert. You two are goals." But there were signs. Little signs. Small moments that didn't sit quite right. Sometimes Jennifer joked about how lucky Leslie was to have found her, as if he'd won some cosmic lottery. Sometimes she made comments about his Midwestern accent when her LA friends were around, laughing it off as cute but fixable. Once, while shopping, she'd said casually, "Don't worry, baby. After we're married, we're doing a complete wardrobe overhaul. I'll turn you into a proper West Coast success story." Leslie had laughed along, but the comment lodged itself somewhere uncomfortable in his chest. One afternoon, he overheard her on the phone with a friend. "Leslie's sweet, obviously, but honestly? I'm just counting down until he opens that Malibu location he promised. That's when real life starts." Leslie told himself he was overthinking it. Love makes you blind, right? Marriage is about patience, about growing together, about looking past the small stuff. He had no idea just how blind he'd been. Before we continue this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Leslie proposed on a Saturday evening in February, exactly 1 year after they'd met. He'd flown Jennifer to New York City, rented a private rooftop overlooking Central Park, and hired a violinist because she'd once mentioned loving string music. When he opened the velvet box, Jennifer's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes," she'd said, and for that perfect moment, every doubt Leslie had ever felt evaporated like morning fog. The ring was custom designed. A 3-carat diamond that cost more than his first car, his first apartment, and his college tuition combined. Jennifer posted photos immediately, her phone lighting up with congratulations from friends Leslie had never met. "We're getting married," she captioned it, with a string of ring and heart emojis. Planning began within days. Jennifer had opinions about everything: the venue, the date, the guest list, the color scheme. "I'm thinking New York," she announced over brunch. A destination wedding. Manhattan. Something sophisticated, not some backyard Midwest affair. Leslie hesitated, thinking of his mother's modest home, his father's tight budget for travel. "New York's expensive, Jen. Maybe we could." "Leslie." She reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "This is our one wedding. Our one chance to do it right. Don't you want it to be perfect?" Her eyes were so bright, so full of excitement, that he found himself nodding. "Of course. Perfect." By March, the budget had ballooned to numbers that made even Leslie wince. Wedding planning brought Jennifer to Chicago more frequently, and with each visit, the mask slipped a little further. She'd taken over his dining table with binders full of vendor catalogs, seating charts, and fabric swatches, transforming his minimalist penthouse into wedding headquarters. Leslie didn't mind the chaos. What bothered him were the comments that came with it. "We need to limit your side of the guest list," Jennifer said one evening, highlighting names with a pink marker. "Your cousins from Indiana, do they even own passports? A New York wedding might be overwhelming for them." She said it gently, like she was doing him a favor. Leslie felt his jaw tighten but said nothing. The mocking of his accent became a regular performance. During a call with her wedding planner, Jennifer put him on speaker. "Say Chicago for her, babe." When he did, she laughed. "Hear that? Chi-ch go. So Midwestern." We'll work on that before the vows. The planner laughed politely. Leslie didn't. His mother called weekly, asking about wedding details, offering to help with costs. "Mom, I've got it covered," Leslie assured her, but the truth was Jennifer's demands were spiraling. A custom Vera Wang gown. A celebrity florist from Manhattan. A 7-tier cake from a bakery that required a 6-month waiting list and a deposit that could have funded a college scholarship. When his father quietly mentioned the expense at Sunday dinner, Jennifer overheard. Later, in the car, she exploded. "Your family doesn't understand what this kind of wedding requires. They're lovely people, Leslie, but they're simple. They don't get our world. Our world." As if his family existed in some separate, lesser dimension. That night, Leslie stood at his penthouse window, staring at the city lights, and wondered when he'd started feeling like a guest in his own life. The final invoice arrived in April, $847,000 for a single day. Leslie stared at the number, then signed the contract anyway. Jennifer squealed with delight, throwing her arms around his neck. "You're making all my dreams come true," she whispered, and he desperately wanted to believe that should be enough. The venue was a historic Manhattan ballroom with crystal chandeliers and marble floors. The guest list had grown to 300, though Jennifer had systematically pruned Leslie's side. "We need to maintain a certain aesthetic," she'd explained, crossing out names. His college roommate didn't make the cut. Neither did his mentor from the community center. His mother's church friends were deemed too much for the sophisticated atmosphere Jennifer envisioned. Then came the reception details. Leslie had suggested incorporating some elements from his family's tradition, perhaps his mother's famous peach cobbler for dessert, or playing a few Motown classics his father loved. Jennifer's face had frozen mid-sip of her wine. "Babe. No. This is a black-tie Manhattan wedding, not a family reunion in someone's backyard. We have a Michelin-starred caterer. We have a curated playlist from a Grammy-winning DJ. Let's not confuse the vibe." His father pulled him aside during a rare visit to Chicago. "Son, this doesn't feel like you. This whole production, it's not what you value." Leslie bristled. "Dad, marriage is about compromise. Jennifer has a vision, and I want her to be happy." His father looked at him with something close to pity. "And what about you, Leslie? When will you be happy?" Leslie had no answer. He'd stopped asking himself that question weeks ago, somewhere between the imported Italian linens and the argument about whether his family's traditional prayer was too long for the ceremony. The wedding day arrived with perfect June weather, the kind of flawless sunshine that belonged in romantic movies. Leslie stood in his dressing suite at the Manhattan venue, adjusting his white tuxedo jacket for the 100th time. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. In the mirror, he looked like a stranger, polished, expensive, hollow. Chris noticed, clapping him on the shoulder. "Cold feet, brother?" "No," Leslie said, but his voice sounded thin even to himself. "Just nervous, I guess." "Let's get some air," Chris suggested. "Walk off the jitters. 5 minutes won't hurt." They wandered down the hallway, past elaborate arrangements of white roses and towering gold candelabras. Jennifer had chosen everything personally, down to the specific shade of ivory ribbon. The venue was a maze of elegant corridors, and they'd turned down a side hallway when Chris suddenly froze, his hand shooting out to grab Leslie's arm. Voices drifted from a door left slightly ajar, the bridal suite. Jennifer's laugh rang out, bright and carefree. "Girls, can you believe it? 1 year. Just 1 year, and I'm set for life." Leslie's entire body went rigid. Chris's grip on his arm tightened like a vice, but Leslie couldn't have moved if he'd wanted to. His feet had turned to concrete. "What do you mean, 1 year?" one of the bridesmaids asked, confused. "The divorce, obviously." Jennifer's tone was casual, like she was discussing weekend plans. 12 months, long enough to look legitimate, then I file. California's community property laws are beautiful. Plus the boutique expansion he's funding, that'll be mine free and clear. Then I'm back to Derek in Malibu where I belong. Leslie felt the air leave his lungs. Wait, you're still with Derek? Another bridesmaid asked, shock creeping into her voice. Not officially, but he's waiting. He knows the plan. God, I miss actual sophistication. Derek gets me. Leslie's sweet and all, useful for sure, but long-term? She laughed, that same musical laugh Leslie had fallen in love with. Please. He's a Midwest Boy Scout playing businessman. The family dinners alone are torture, his mother and her pot roast, his father talking about postal routes. They're good people for what they are, I guess. Simple people. Flyover country peasants playing dress-up in rented tuxedos today. The bridesmaids fell silent. One of them finally spoke, her voice uncertain. Jennifer, that's really cold. That's practical, Jennifer corrected smoothly. I didn't claw my way up from community college to end up trapped in Chicago talking about the weather every Sunday. This is business. And in 1 year, I'm free. Free and financially secure. Chris already had his phone out, recording. His jaw was clenched so tight Leslie could see the muscle jumping. But Leslie himself felt strangely detached, like he was watching this happen to someone else. The woman he loved, the woman he'd fought for, defended, nearly bankrupted himself to make happy, had just reduced their entire relationship to a financial transaction with an expiration date. 1 year, Jennifer repeated, and Leslie could hear the smile in her voice. Then back to my real life. Derek's already looking at houses in Malibu for us. Chris stopped the recording. He looked at Leslie, waiting for direction, but Leslie couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely. Every Sunday dinner Jennifer had endured with fake smiles. Every time she'd mocked his accent. Every demand, every criticism, every moment he'd told himself he was overthinking things, it all crystallized into one devastating truth. She'd never loved him. Not even a little. Leslie, Chris whispered urgently. What do you want to do? Leslie finally found his voice. It came out cold and unfamiliar, belonging to someone he didn't recognize. Help me set something up. I'm going to need the sound system. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur. Chris wanted to confront Jennifer immediately, but Leslie stopped him with a raised hand. His mind had gone eerily calm, crystallizing into sharp, cold clarity. No, he said quietly. Not yet. Help me set something up. They worked quickly. Chris synced his phone to the venue's sound system, the same premium audio setup Jennifer had insisted upon for her grand entrance music. The wedding coordinator looked confused but didn't question the groom's last-minute technical request. Leslie walked down the aisle at the appointed time. 300 guests rose to their feet. His mother dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. His father's expression remained guarded, uncertain. Jennifer waited at the altar in her custom Vera Wang gown, $40,000 worth of silk and lace, her sunshine smile radiant under the chandeliers. The officiant began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Leslie let him finish the opening remarks. Then, when asked if anyone objected to this union, Leslie raised his hand. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Jennifer's smile faltered. Leslie, she whispered. What are you doing? I object, he said clearly. He nodded to Chris, standing near the sound booth. Jennifer's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear through $10,000 worth of speakers. Girls, can you believe it? 1 year. Just 1 year, and I'm set for life. The color drained from Jennifer's face. Her bridesmaids froze like statues. The recording continued. Every word. Every cruel laugh. Flyover country peasants. The plan was always the boutique. Back to Derek. Midwest Boy Scout act. When it finished, the silence was absolute. 300 people sat frozen, shocked into paralysis. Leslie reached into his jacket, pulled out the wedding contract, and tore it cleanly down the middle. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. "The wedding," he announced, his voice steady despite the earthquake inside his chest, "is cancelled." He walked past Jennifer, her mouth open, tears starting, hands reaching, and didn't look back. Chris fell in step beside him. Behind them, chaos erupted. Gasps. Shouts. Jennifer's voice calling his name, high and desperate. Leslie kept walking. The video went viral within hours. Someone had filmed the altar scene on their phone, and by midnight, Jennifer Clark's humiliation was international entertainment. The comments were merciless. Her boutique agency's Instagram was flooded with angry messages. Brand partnerships evaporated overnight. The Malibu location she'd dreamed of never materialized. Investors withdrew when her name became synonymous with gold-digging treachery. Her family's financial situation, which had quietly depended on Jennifer's impending marriage to wealth, collapsed. The mother who'd encouraged the match, the father who'd already been planning his early retirement, they watched their daughter's scheme unravel on social media like everyone else. Jennifer's frantic calls to Leslie went unanswered. Derek, her supposed backup plan, had blocked her number before the story even trended. Leslie saw none of it. He'd turned off his phone, deleted his social media apps, and driven straight to his mother's house in Chicago. She'd held him while he cried, the first time in 15 years, and didn't say, "I told you so," even though she'd sensed something was wrong for months. For 6 months, Leslie disappeared from public life. He ran his company remotely, declined all interviews, and spent his days rebuilding the person Jennifer had slowly dismantled. He went to therapy. He reconnected with the cousins Jennifer had deemed unworthy of the guest list. He volunteered at the community center where he'd learned to code as a teenager, teaching kids who reminded him why success mattered in the first place. That's where he met Whitney. She was a volunteer teacher, patient and soft-spoken, helping 7th graders with math homework. She didn't recognize Leslie, didn't know about his company, his money, or his viral wedding disaster. She just knew him as the guy who was surprisingly good at explaining algorithms to confused 12-year-olds. Their first conversation lasted 20 minutes and covered nothing more significant than the best pizza places in Chicago. No performance. No agenda. Just two people talking because they enjoyed it. When Whitney finally learned who he was, a full month into their friendship, she'd simply shrugged. "Okay. Are you still bringing donuts for the kids next week?" Leslie had laughed, a real laugh that came from somewhere deep and genuine. "Yeah. I'll bring donuts." 6 months later, when he told her he loved her, Whitney smiled and said, "I know. I love you too." No games. No calculations. Just the truth. Leslie's heart, for the first time in years, felt calm instead of racing. And he finally understood the difference.